All right, so remember how in my review of the AW3225QF 4K 240Hz OLED, despite me recommending the display because, I mean, who couldn't? It's a 4K 240Hz glossy quantum dot OLED. It is basically the display of our dreams. Well, despite that, I had some gripes about how SDR and HDR were handled. Well, I looked into it further, I peered into the abyss, and my God, it's a disaster that needs a firmware update ASAP. When I was using it, I could tell something was definitely wrong with its sRGB mode in both SDR as well as sRGB emulation in HDR, which, by the way, is extremely important since that is the native color space of Windows and typically all other non-HDR apps. So what I'm trying to tell you here, guys, is if you're not using an HDR game, or if you're not watching something in HDR, it's gonna look really, really messed up because it turns out the sRGB on the sRGB gamma curve or the 2.2 gamma curve is wildly over brightened, leading to an image that is so washed out, it's basically unusable for any professional work at all. Guys, this is a disaster. I mean, let me just show you one screenshot I captured. This is the display in a gamma 2.2 mode using the sRGB color gamut. I tried to get it to match even the sRGB gamma curve, which is not what I've set the display to, and it can't even do that. So just, this is way, way off. In an HDR mode, it is far worse. It is just way over brightened all the way down, and it is a complete disaster. Now, thankfully, I did create an ICC profile, which to the best of my abilities did essentially make this monitor usable. As you can see here, it is perfectly tracking the gamma 2.2 curve, and the RGB balance has been completely fixed. Now, the unfortunate part about this is because Windows isn't fully color managed and it has all kinds of weird bugs with color, which drive me absolutely bananas, which hopefully will be fixed in Windows 12 at some point later this year. God, I hope so. Well, because that's the case, this will unfortunately affect HDR as well. Now, the good news is HDR was also over brightened, so it's not that big of a deal. Instead of it being slightly over brightened, it will now be slightly too dark in some areas. So it's a little bit of a trade-off you're making to make this display actually usable for some amount of editing. Also, there's some weird bugs with the display where if you're in creator mode versus game mode versus whatever other mode, it can somehow affect HDR as well, which should also not be the case. So I can't promise you that it's going to be 100% perfect all the time, but this is a massive improvement. I'll throw on screen the before and after of what SDR content looks like in HDR, and essentially what this ICC profile allows you to do is leave it in HDR mode all the time and get relatively accurate results all the time. You never have to go in and out of HDR. And I do have a process explaining exactly how you install this stuff, how it works over on my Patreon. So if you've already purchased this display and you're locked in and you're on the launch firmware, I do highly recommend going ahead and taking a look at my Patreon, because if you don't, it's totally messed up and honestly really, really bad. This is the only thing that'll even make it, in my opinion, basically usable for non-HDR content, especially if you're doing any amount of professional work. Although if it's really professional work, maybe go buy like a professionally calibrated monitor. But in any case, hopefully that helps you guys out if you are on the edge of whether or not you want this display and you're considering the Gigabyte or MSI or other ones as well. I would maybe wait for my other reviews, get subscribed, because this is rough. This is real rough, guys. Whether you're looking to connect a new console, gaming PC, or just need a fast and reliable HDMI cable to connect over long distances, Rupro has you covered with their certified 8K HDMI 2.1 fiber optic cable, available in sizes of up to 50 feet and can deliver a perfect full 48 gigabits per second connection over distances other cables could only dream of reaching. And with 48 gigabits per second of bandwidth, it can easily drive 8K 60 FPS or 4K 144 FPS 10-bit HDR video through its ultra-thin, flexible, and durable housing, and it even supports ER. So if you're in the market for a cable that can drive a beautiful new TV or monitor, be sure to check out Rupro on Amazon today.